Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. Thank you for staying with us. Towards the end of this broadcast, we'll sample your feedback on Twitter. And this is the report by the NACADA, which is the agency mandated by the government on drug and substance abuse among secondary school learners. 7.5% marijuana, inhalants, heroin and cocaine. In that order, 2.3%, 1.2, 1.1, and the numbers reflected on the other end of 162 who have abused marijuana in secondary schools, 49,000 inhalants across secondary schools, heroin 26,000, and cocaine at 23,887. That's according to the NACADA report. And the lifetime prevalence also here captured in the report, 44.5%, and the current prevalence is 23.8%. For tobacco, it's 15.3%, and then the current prevalence 4.8%. Khat or Miraa, 11.3%, the current prevalence 2.9%. Bang or marijuana, 8.2%, the current prevalence is 1.9%. Let's take a look at the numbers among the primary school learners, which is also part of the data captured in the report. And prevalence of alcohol by 7.2% of learners across primary schools in the country. Tobacco 6.0%, Khat or Miraa 3.7%, Bang or marijuana among learners in primary schools 1.2%. And the prevalence currently is 0.7% for heroin, 0.4%, inhalant 0.5%, and the prescription of drugs at 10.4%, according to the report by NACADA. And at least one substance abuse among the primary school learners is 20.2%. This number also is represented or captured in the 18.2%, which is a representation of the 4.9 million Kenyans who have at least abused one substance. I want us to take a look at the numbers in terms of the primary school learners, and this is the prevalence. Just going to the other slide in terms of the presentation. Okay, we have to go to the next one, but these are just the numbers as part of the presentation in the report by NACADA to the National Assembly, and captured in the report, which also has far-reaching recommendations made by NACADA, and just a breakdown of the numbers of the abuse of drugs among secondary school learners and primary school learners across the country. Back to you, Safin.
That breakdown of the numbers, and of course just coming at a time when we were having a conversation about how the age is going lower when it comes to abuse of alcohol and some of these substances. And a quick question as we move ahead, maybe from the CEO. You told us earlier about how the trends you're reading from where these drugs are coming from which areas are most affected with which substance. Have you done anything that touches on the primary schools that would speak to where these young ones are getting these substances, that would speak to some of the loopholes that probably we have not paid attention to, that could be affecting our young ones as they are within the confines of the learning institutions?
Thank you for that question. We have looked at the drug situation in primary schools. And the question is, where do they get these drugs? Of course, what is obvious is that we have a weakness in the control of pharmacies. That came out very clearly, because in primary, actually, if you check the facts, I mean the figures, prescription drugs is more of a problem than all these other drugs. If you check the rate of prescription drugs. And the current problem we have in institutions actually is prescription drugs. And those drugs which are actually not allowed without a prescription from a doctor. And the question one will ask is, how do they access this? We have actually had a meeting with the Association of the Pharmacists, and we are telling them we have a challenge here. And we also talk to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, who regulates the pharmacists. And we agree that there is a problem that needs to be fixed. Now, some of these fellows, when they are walking home, or when back to school, they will carry these things in their racks and they will pass like this medication. But it's actually the substance of abuse, right? The primary schools, most of them are operating from home. These drugs are in our drawers, I mean in our fridge, in our cupboards. And that, so the accessibility is actually more even for primary than the secondary because of those restrictions. But we have had cases where there are students who are actually agents of some people involved in trafficking. So they will go home, and when they are coming, they have a way of concealing this into the institutions. We have also had evidence that in our schools, those kiosks around the schools are very vibrant sources of drugs. Yeah? So you go like you are going to buy your piece of bread, and you will pick your drug. And this is the biggest problem that we have. So the environment around the schools, the pharmacies, we control on the pharmacies, and of course the fact that we have it all over in our houses. Those are very obvious sources of these substances and these drugs.
Okay, Senator, the CEO mentions the question of the secondary school and primary school learners and the abuse of the numbers that we have just broken down on the super wall. And what comes to mind is, where is the institution of parenting? Because of the close proximity they enjoy with the primary school goers, as he has mentioned, and what role are they playing in lessening down the number?
Now, let me first appreciate this topic, okay? And let me say that, one, as a parent, the issue and the response from the CEO in terms of maybe the environment within the school, I've been in this Kenyan system. I've gone to school here. In the school that I went to, a public school, we've been having kiosks around the school. We could buy those mangoes and all that and enjoy going back home and have, biting those fruits or something like that. So the institutions that surround our learning institutions, I've been there. The question, and the key question, is the parenting factor. And that is where the whole discussion is. Because as much as this particular shop or this particular vendor is selling whatever they're selling, but why is kid A stepping in to buy and kid B not stepping in to buy? Let us go back a step behind and let parents know that this is where the problem lies. And I'll give a small example on when we talked about the parting issue. You find that parents are holding birthday parties, for example. A kid, for example, is like age 3. This kid, or age 2, does not even know how to talk so much and all that. But the party is for the adults. Whatever they are doing, because they've also come with their other kids. So what these parents are doing, these kids are able to watch. So the buck stops with the parents. And it is the high time that the parents look at this issue very differently. It is so painful that, like, as I said yesterday, I was on NTV, and I said that last year was so tough because we had 4 terms in the learning institutions. And now this is January. You're having your kid going to the second level of class. You're having a junior secondary. You're having a Form 1. You're having a Form 4, and you have to prepare. You can see how tough it is. And these parents are struggling. And at the end of the day, the results of this kid, apart from whatever they get academically, there's the aspect of this kid has got into a level of an addiction, the abuse. If parents were going to invest good education for our kids, and the government has really done so much in ensuring that we have good, the CBC that we are having. Okay. But teachers cannot do it alone. The teachers need support from the parents so that it's a relation between the students, the parent, and the teacher, so that they bring a one unified result of that particular student. But you find that parents are wanting to leave this responsibility to the teacher. Teacher cannot manage it alone. Even that teacher is a parent. They have also other responsibilities. So it's a collective responsibility. Even before, because my question is, and my concern is on the abuse part, because alcohol is not illegal in this country, but the abuse part and the factor of the age 18 factor, it has been abused, yes, because we are going back. But where does it start? It starts with our parenting.
Okay, but Senator, just one quick question before my colleague comes in, and we also look at the public sector, the abuse among public sector and the workforce. When you say alcohol isn't illegal, I'm looking at even the business part of it, and with the branding itself comes excessive use of alcohol is harmful to your health.
Yeah.
And you can't police the human brain, for example, because it's not all the time you have the time to look after what they do or undertake. But where is the responsibility here that comes with adulthood? Because I'm looking at the workplace numbers here. Alcohol, for example, the current prevalence is 23.8%. And these are not school-going children, either primary or secondary. Yeah. These are adults who can make decisions, who are informed, yet the prevalence is 23.8%. Yes.
Back again to the family, because the family setup, you find that marriages have been having issues, and you find that people are indulging into the alcohol part in terms of making it a solution to solve. So still the family setup, the family morals and the roles that we as parents are doing. So when I talk about parenting, it's not just about the kid alone. It also takes the responsibility of the other two parents or the one single parent. It's all parenting. So you as an adult, of course, stress will always be there, but how are we managing it? Adults have gotten into the hiding into the bars and all this push. So it is still an advocacy, and we are trying to communicate as leaders on how at least this can go down. We've had so many cases like the 2 years ago whereby domestic issues, and mostly this will happen when one of the members is actually not sober, because you've indulged in the abuse to be able to think that is the way to be able to relax. Workplaces, work also have stress on their own levels. Okay. And this work institution should also give room for how to go extra mile and be able to offer counseling services to the teens. And actually, back to the school factor, we have, I know private schools, they have counselors who actually it's continuous and are able to talk to the students. Okay. If also that through the Ministry of Education, there would be an office that actually takes care of guidance and counseling. I remember in my high school, we used to have guidance and counseling, and the matron used to take up that, so that when you're going through something, there's that. So even in the learning institution, in the working environment, the private sector, that should be something to be considered. All
right. Mine is simple, CEO. You earlier said that people used to drink when there was an occasion, and it was ceremonial, and it was controlled, and it was done responsibly. Where did the rain start beating us? Why do people drink and abuse drugs as if there is no tomorrow? Why are we suddenly witnessing a mushrooming of bars and wines and spirits joints in our residential areas? Why is it suddenly becoming that there's such an increased appetite for drinking, and not just drinking responsibly, but drinking as if somebody wants to die while at it? What is happening?
Before I come to where the rain started beating us, let me wind up the discussion around the underage drug abuse. And the science here tells us that a developing mind of a young person is vulnerable to very, very negative health impacts. A young mind is in developing. It is not fully developed. So the moment you subject the developing mind to those substances, it will impair the normal growth, and it will affect the young people more than the adults, because the adults, they have a fully grown brain. That is what science tells us. And therefore, really, parents need to understand the risk they are exposing their young ones. Yes. To abusing drugs. Even when they leave the family and they are in the hands of the teachers and they are under 18, they need to be protected by the institutions by ensuring that those institutions do not expose these young minds that are growing to drugs. Having said that, let me try to answer the question where the rain started beating us. And I think I don't have the answer. I can only give my view, and you can have yours. When we used to have drinking because of a reason, we needed elders to discuss something, and therefore we did brew it, and we invited those we wanted to meet and have a drink. It was more of a purposeful drinking for a reason. Now, drinking has transformed into a commercial, thing, right? People want to capitalize, make money. They brew substandard things just to make money. Bangi has become a very lucrative business. Heroin is a lucrative business. What is happening is that the traffickers will go to innocent young people, give them for free to start, so that they are hooked. Once they are hooked, there is a market. They move to the next level. Those are the kind of tricks that are causing this kind of, I would call it a pandemic. Drug abuse actually is becoming a problem. Look at the alcohol industry. It has become a big-time, a billion industry because of the returns. And the young people, and including many of us, are just part of that empire building of billions worth of industry, right? So you will want to influence. In fact, we say nobody should access a bar unless you are above 18. How many young people are found in bars? Right? How does this happen? And it's an offense to allow young people to...
But what are the recommendations that, from your survey, what are then your recommendations? Because if under 18s can access bars to drink and they are not allowed by law, then what do you recommend other institutions for an action to be taken? And is that reflected in your report?
Yeah, we have actually come out with very, very elaborate recommendations. Every survey we do has a section on what needs to be done, right? And in the case of, for example, the underage drinking, we are blaming the parent in the family setup, right? And we are saying, look at it. As a parent, you are the creator of this child. You know how the child has grown up. If you are keen, you will start to observe certain things that are not part of what you have known this child to be. And that is a red flag. So be watchful. This is a recommendation as a parent. Institutions, we have actually assisted institutions to come up with guidelines that will help them to identify a drug problem in an institution. And we worked this with the Ministry of Education. In fact, it's a Ministry of Education guideline. We, as the authority, only supported them with technical support to come up with the guidelines. These guidelines, when you, as a teacher, it's a handbook to deal with drug in our institutions, right? We have talked about this, staff within the institutions. They are actually agents. Some of them are actually trafficking. So you want a drug, you go to the cook and you will access it. We have even had cases, evidence that the teachers, some teachers are also doing this. They are actually the distribution network. They are part of the distribution network. And we have warned all of this. So when we put all these facts there, we say, do something as parents. Do something as teachers.
But how do you blame the parent when a liquor joint has been licensed to operate next door? The parent probably spends the day at work, most of it. How do you even blame this parent? How much can they do beyond what they're trying to do within the confines of their home? If the very people who are supposed to be regulating the mushrooming of these liquor joints are not doing their work. Just next door, a child, while the parent is at work, can access this. There is loud music at a particular joint operating within the estate. How do you blame the parent in such?
By the way, we as the authority, we don't want to apportion blame. What we do is to put the facts there and engage.
Yeah.
And what we are doing, for example, with the engagement with the counties, we are telling them you have the mandate to license. Look at where you are licensing, if it's in a residential area. There are even court pronouncements about leaving out residential areas as entertainment, unless the design is such that there is an entertainment area reserved for that residential area. That's the only way you can do it. But we go to many places in Nairobi, you will find in the bars just next to an estate, people are sleeping, they can't sleep. This is what the governor in Nairobi is doing, and we do commend him for the kind of effort. And we want to appeal to all the 47 of them to audit the license they have issued and see where they need to close those ones which are in residential areas, next to schools, next to churches, bars where they shouldn't be. But beyond that, let us also limit the number.
Okay. Yes, Senator.
Yeah. Yes. The alcohol issue, the liquor board, this is a devolved function for the counties. And I support what Governor Sakaja is doing in terms of ensuring that all these bars are not within the residential areas and within the schools. And at the same time, the government came in and ensured that there's no bar that there's a proximity, there's a distance that a bar should be between the bar and the learning institutions. And back to the question that you had asked the CEO, Victor, in terms of where did the rain start beating us. The market share for alcohol is always very high. Even if tax is increased for alcohol, people will still, the product will still continue moving in the market. And so for business people, you find that it's a business opportunity and they will venture in that. When you ask the question of why are we always having these businesses are always there, that is the reason. As far as the market factor is concerned, the product has a market share. Number two, there is the issue of the stress levels. And this is also contributing to indulgence in too much of their drug abuse. But the other key factor from where I sit is the culture. Because you asked the question of years back, it could be a ceremony traditionally and, drinking levels, that was that. Unlike today, people have now adapted the Western culture where you want to drink with your children. It's a norm, it's a lifestyle. And we are moving away from our previous culture, and I would urge even the Ministry of Tourism to come in when they are showcasing our different cultures, the Kisii culture, the Kamba culture, the Kikuyu culture, Luo culture, and all that. Let that be part of it. How did the Wazees, drink? What was the distance between the Wazees having their own drinking session and the young people? That culture has also been taken away. Yeah.
Okay, CEO, then coming to you, because these numbers in terms of the percentages that we are talking about are not just mathematics that we are talking about. These are people in real sense. Mm-hmm. Therefore, what is the access to proper rehabilitation centers and holistic treatment of this? Because a failure of doing that is a psychological warfare. Then you are dealing with another crisis on the flip end.
As I answer that question, let me add that besides, of course, the business, and there is also the problem of easy access to these drugs, including how do you control your time for opening and closing bars. These speak to issues of access. We have had cases where bars are opening at 8 o'clock. And you ask yourself, 8 o'clock, somebody is already walking to the bar instead of going to work, right? Those are issues that need to be addressed. We have in the national law, which is the Alcoholic Drinks Control Act, we have stated that bars should only open after 5 during working days and close at 11. And you see, you have a county that, and I wouldn't give examples because we have been engaging and we have seen changes in this. A bar opening as early as 8 in the morning. And they will close when the last person leaves. Those are issues of access that needs to be addressed. Okay. Now, coming to your question of the question you asked was on
the rehabilitation, because these numbers that we talked about are people.
That is a major issue. In fact, that is a headache that the country has to focus on. From the figures you see, the trend of more people getting into the drug abuse, trap. If you looked at our figures, actually alcohol contributes to 10.35% of mental illnesses.
Okay.
Yeah, alcohol, right? And all these others, in our surveys, you will see their contribution to mental health issues. Now, I think in the world, I think there is accessibility in terms of how many people can access a treatment and rehabilitation. Is something in the range of 7. In Kenya, if you come, it will shock you. It's a big one, because there are not enough rehabilitation facilities. As an authority, we regulate them and we inspect and license them. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, every time we have had applications of about 150, when we inspect those that qualify to be, to operate, are sometimes around 70 or so. And then you can start to imagine if for 10.5 Kenyans have a substance use disorder that needs to be addressed, where do they go? That's a huge number. So the challenge is, let us invest more in rehabilitation facilities, and not just rehabilitation facilities, but facilities that give a comprehensive package of treatment, rehabilitation, and reintegration. Reintegration means that once you have stabilized, if you had a mental disorder and you are formerly a teacher, how do we help this person to regain his lost job? And if you are doing your own self-employment, how do we assist you to access your self-employment?
Right.
That is the package we are saying. In fact, 90% of rehabilitation facilities are actually owned by individuals.
Thank you.
Right? Of course, a few with churches, which are okay. So we need to invest more public-owned. Counties should do more rehab, so that public-owned rehabs are cheaper and will be accessed by more Kenyans. I
like your proposal, because as you observe the trends, even the rehabs are becoming another business altogether, if not regulated.
Yes.
There are quite a number of people just out there to make money and not have the real intent to save the lives of those who've been addicted.
That's true.
Yeah, but I have a different opinion as far as the rehabilitation centers. As much as, yes, at the particular moment, we need to have enough. But we should not continue having more, because that says then we continue encouraging more abuse, then hence more institutions. We should be working backwards on how to actually get off that particular level. We should have much more learning institutions, more TVETs, more universities, more junior high. We don't even have a junior high. We should be encouraging the government to actually build school for this junior high where we have lack of classes, but not more rehabilitation centers. So backwards, we should be working backwards to be able to know how these numbers are going to reduce, not how they are going to increase, so that we accommodate them. And my question, I'll put it like a rhetorical question of how much parenting is enough parenting, and when does parenting start and when does it stop? Because to me, it's a continuous process. When you become, at times, as women, we're always told, ukuwe na watoto wengi. But I say, as long as you're a parent, you'll always be a parent. Even when that child of yours is age 40, you are the father, you are the mother. It is a continuous process, and it should not have a stop. It should be engaging, so that we reduce these numbers. As where we are, the CEO, we should be looking at, this was the number, this 2023. In 2022, the government should be, through your office, how do we go to a lesser number, a lesser figure? That is the solution, but not how to increase this.
I agree with
well
that.
said, so.
Yes,
I agree with that.
And also on top of that, the law enforcement, it has relaxed, because we have counterfeit goods that are producing cheap products that are now becoming accessible, and that is why, to some extent, when the cost of alcohol prices increase, it should be okay. But the challenge we still have is that it is still affordable, apparently, and people are complaining about the unga factor and not the cost of the alcohol, and yet they are able to access it.
Okay.
I don't want to appear like I am against what she's saying. Actually, the message should be that we should focus more on prevention programs. That is the fact. And that is where a lot of our energy should be. But what do you do with the ones who are now affected? The question is, they will need to be supported through that process.
True.
Yeah.
All right. So we invited your feedback, on this particular program, that we say Alcohol and drug abuse has affected so many homes, so many families. A majority of them would share some of the stories they have, and you'd hear how many families have been broken and how children are lacking their parents at home, how wives are lacking their husbands, how husbands are also complaining about their wives. And we want to hear from you.
Compounding problem.
Yeah, it cuts across. That's what we were talking about. So we want to hear from you. At Bob Otieno Owino, you say NACADA should work in hand with the government to curb fake, counterfeit, cheap alcohol, making inroads in our market, not forgetting illicit brews in our local villages. Thank you, Bob.
Remy Butia says drug prevention today calls for new tactics. Successful prevention programs shouldn't scare, threaten or exaggerate the dangers of substance abuse, and prevention practitioners should keep this approach in mind.
Engineer Lazaro, you say turning all bars into churches alone will not achieve anything. Let's take the bull by its horn. Government should create employment for youths. Number of them resorted to heavy drinking as an option of killing stress. And Agumba Steve says the drug abuse menace is, if not taken up seriously, will cost Kenya and the entire world of its productive age group, the youth. More awareness and measures is needed, and even school curriculum enhanced more on the dangers of this menace to salvage the future generation. All right. The message is clear. The youth, the youth, the youth. Yes. That is where a lot of concern has been concentrated, looking at the young population, the issue of unemployment, the rising stress levels as some of the reasons leading to the, surge in alcohol and drug abuse among the young people. As we're just about to wrap up in terms of the way forward, I like one, feedback there that Todd touched on the fact that the strategies, the tactics should now change. Yes. As we move this conversation forward, how are we going to do this differently? Let me start with you, Mheshimiwa.
The difference, it's how you do it differently so as to get different results. And yes, we agree where we are as a government in terms of these levels. And it's about much more engagement, especially with the youths. We should give them platform to engage. And we should understand that the youths of today, 2023, are not the youths of the 1980s. How we are engaging our youths today, it should be different. We should engage them in a language, and let me call it a vibe, that we are able to connect with them and be able to understand it, so that they are able to be free, they are able to actually be able to open up. Because when we are also using the old ways of doing it in engagement, they become a bit scary and they don't want to be free, they don't want to talk about it. So let us give our youth that 2023 platform. We are in a digital era. Let us talk to them. Let us freely give them that smooth, open platform so that they can be able to open up. I've actually been able to help a few youths who actually came to me, who could not even actually deal that with their parents, because the parent is coming, heads on, and I'll beat you, I'll do all this. So this kid becomes very scared. They run away to where they can be listened to. And I say, even if you as a parent, it's a bit tough, call a guardian, call a good friend to be able to listen first to this kid, so that and the kid talked and said all that he has been doing, and there was a solution. All that. And I wanted to encourage, actually, the single mothers. I'm a product of a single mother. And there's that notion of, single parenting is bringing all this. No, that is not correct. Because even from where I sit I do not take any alcohol. It's just a choice, But, of course, I can buy a drink. But it's just a choice. Yeah.
Yes, but I see your final comments. Brief.
By the way, I was impressed by those comments. And they really speak to the problem, and really that's what we should do. The only thing I want to correct is NACADA should work with government. NACADA is government, right? Yeah. And we really need to engage with all the stakeholders, with the county government and with the parents and everybody else to address this problem. And I agree that this problem, unless we all focus on it, is going to overwhelm us. It's going to be a big monster to deal with if we don't do it now. Finally, as parents, let's be watchful of our children. Let's be custodians of our children. Let's monitor them. And let's seek help when we see signals of something that is not right. That is very, very important. And It is our responsibility, all of us. And let's not blame each other. Let's work together.
No blame game.
Let's engage.
So much.
Thank
Victor Okioma there. Looks like the biggest responsibility now lies with the parents. You may not be able to change what is happening outside in the outside world, but you can be able to influence what is happening within your home and what is going to happen to your children as a parent going forward. Victor Okioma, CEO NACADA. We're also having a sit down with Tabitha Mutinda, nominated senator, who says she is sober. You can buy a drink. Thank you so much, Mesh, for creating time and for your insights this morning. We were expecting Eric Njuguna, psychiatrist. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us today, but still, we had a very constructive conversation this morning. And thank you for your feedback, for creating time for Daybreak this morning. Always a pleasure to do this for you. My name is Safin Achieng Oma. Have a good day.
And many thanks for joining us. Up next is Crossroad legend, a sit down with an author, Merigo Kinyanjui, who details the story of an African girl in an American university academy, and due to her kindness, offering a Muslim billionaire heir apparent after his visa card failed. The question of you might never know who you meet in the world. She will tell us more about this and the book.
It's the kind act that stands out for me, her kind gesture to assist without even knowing that this guy was a billionaire. And then they ended up, you know, one thing leading to the other. And, you know, that story is really interesting. And the author of that book is coming up next to talk to us about this story, among others that probably she is planning to do. And this is a conversation you should stand by for, coming up next on Daybreak.